Hello everyone, this is Ishpriya Kaur. I am the convener of the Social Media Committee and member of the Political Affairs Committee of the India Greens Party. You are welcome to today's webinar. Mr. Ranmal Singh Jhala, Vice President of the India Greens Party, will talk on the sensitive lifestyles. Mr. Jhala will talk on the status of the mandatory green education in the schools and colleges in the light of a Supreme Court direction. Akash Sriramoju, Secretary of the party, will moderate the session. Before going to the topic, let me tell in brief that the India Greens Party came into existence on 2nd July 2017. The party was formalized on 18 November 2019 with the adoption of its constitution and formation of the National Executive and under the leadership of Mr. Suresh Nautiyal. The party was registered as a political party by the Election Commission of India on 18 July 2019. Today, the party has footprints in 27 states and union territories. It has elected state executive bodies in 3 states, namely Karnataka, Chhattisgarh, and Brihan, Mumbai. The IGP has ad hoc bodies and working groups in 11 states, union territories. It has around 30 policies in place and 19 national committees to take care of the various issues. We request you to support us by filling the membership form of the party and by donating to the party. For both purposes, you may visit www.indiagreens.party.org or call the IGP office secretary on the mobile number that you will find on the website. So thank you very much. Over to Mr. Jhala, our Vice President.
Welcome to this first of this series, because this is based on the textbook for environmental studies, which was made mandatory almost 20 years ago by the Supreme Court. So we can't cover the whole book. The book has 7 units, so we will deal with the second unit. I have PowerPoint presentation. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a graphic designer by training. I have done environmental education. I've planted trees for over 40 years. So basically, I live in a village now. I am now with the Green Party since almost a year. It seems that we are progressing quite well. So this is the beginning of the series. Could we have the PowerPoint, Akash? So this is the book. It's a paperback, not very expensive. I've sent you all the PDF. Those who want, order a hard copy. It costs $300 or $275 or something. Next slide, please. I'm beginning with a very recent issue where in Chhatarpur district in Madhya Pradesh, there's been an auction of these jungles for mining, and Aditya Birla has won the auction against Adani. Now, this is just the tip of the iceberg regarding the problems. Can you have the next slide, please? Yeah. Now, this is the kind of mining that after deforestation, we are raping our planet. The Panna diamond mine has been exhausted. These guys will dig deeper and deeper and deeper till they can't go any further. And I began with this problem because this is very recent. I suppose in the long run, the Green Party can file PILs and so on. Can we have the next slide, please? The floods, climate change is really the big issue now. And we are having flash floods all over. This is a forest fire in America, and there are forest fires in Australia. Millions of animals are dying. Koala bears, endangered species are getting extinct. Suresh ji, this is Uttarakhand, and Uttarakhand seems to have both man-made and accidental forest fires. So this is also adding to this climate change problem. Nothing is being done about it. And there are tribals protesting for their land, for their forest, for their water. The tribals are a concern which there's somebody here in Ahmedabad who hasn't come today, Mahesh Gajera. He is working with tribals and their problems. So we need to involve this as well. Next, please. Now, icebergs are melting. The polar bears have nowhere to go. And this is all part of climate change. The sea is rising. Later, we'll see how islands have disappeared. Next, please. Look at the floods that are happening in Europe and America and India and all over. So this is what's going to happen to the low-lying areas of the city right now. Recently in Saurashtra, where I am, Rajkot and Jamnagar have had very bad floods, excessive rain and bad floods. This is a marble mine in Rajasthan, just for the lifestyles of the rich, even the middle class now. If you go to the next slide, you'll see the kind of use we are putting marble to. Our lifestyles are not sustainable, and what we are doing to the planet is unforgivable. The biggest bane of all is the food we eat has got chemical pesticides and fertilizers. And organic farming is something we have to pursue. Next, desertification. A lot of land is now, the Aral Sea is completely dried up. If we don't watch it, a lot of our rivers are drying up, but there's Rajendra Singh who's reviving them. This is somewhere in Nepal, landslide with a flood, how houses have fallen down. The picture is rather small, so you can't really see unless you zoom in. These are islands in Odisha and Bengal, which have been inundated with the sea rising because of the climate change. 40% of humanity lives along the coastline and 90% of it is third world. Where will they go? Large populations of India, Bangladesh, etc. Now let's look at the brighter side and the possibilities that we need. See, we can't cover the entire book in one session, but I just thought I'd give you a silver lining at the end of the dark cloud. Planting trees is something that we all can do in schools. Apart from theory, there has to be practical gardening, etc. Again, next. Another thing is gardening in places where people have space is growing your own food and getting children involved because it is their future we are playing with. These are plantation drives. We are having a plantation drive in Gujarat next July. This is part of the One Mahotsav, which began long ago with Kanhaiya Lal Munshi. So these are some of the things that we should have involved. Children should make compost and gardening, foraging and recycling and so on. Now, talking about recycling, we have a problem of plastic bags. Plastic bags can be recycled into making roads. There's a chap in Coimbatore in the south who's been doing it, and they are very hardy. Then there is plastic bags. Bottles can be filled with more plastic and become eco bricks. So there are many possibilities. There are wonderful people doing wonderful work. And we need the government to, when we come into power, hopefully, we will be able to implement these ideas, prevent cutting of trees along highways, stop cutting trees for mining, and so on. Why do we need diamond? So basically, we need everybody to have seed banks. When you eat a nice fruit, keep the seed. And you can have your own kitchen gardens and your own orchard. So basically, sabko mali bana dena hai. Everybody a gardener. This is a rare seed bank in Russia. Next. There's a rare seed bank in Russia which is not being maintained, but people have collected obscure seeds in Garhwal. There's Vijay Jardhari who's written a book called Bara Masa, where they're growing simultaneously, they grow more than 8-9 crops. These are things which are getting wiped out because of the hybrid culture that we are following. So we need seed banks. I think that's enough for today. We can have questions and answers now. And if anyone has anything to say.
So, Akash, would you like to articulate what Mr. Jhala has said in his presentation or add to what has been missed?
Okay, Surajji. So in the current time, when the climate change is changing the world, the sustainable development is becoming a key point in every country. So the Ranmal Jhala ji has mentioned about all the climate calamities that we are facing at every part of the country. What we can do for that, like environmental education should be a priority for any nation to progress. So if you look at the European countries over there, in the Finland or Sweden or these kind of countries, they have very much the environmental education is part of the school education. They have the experiential learning or hands-on experience. So through that, the children learn about the essence of nature, what is the nature is. They take the children into the forest and all. So these kind of things also should be implemented in Indian education system. So that's the main essence of the Ranmal Jhala's talk. So even not only that, in the new education policy has come up recently in 2020, National Education Policy. So in that, the government of India has not even mentioned about any improvements in the environmental education policy. They only mentioned about the sustainable development goals, but that is also not at a superficial level. So at this juncture, the environmental education is crucial for any nation. And a nation like India, which is in the global south, it is developing country. We need to progress as well, along with the other hand, protecting our environment. So at this juncture, the environmental education should be imparted into the schools and colleges. So this is the main essence what the Jhala ji is saying about the experiential learning, how we can create the seed banks, and as well as the hands-on experience for the children. Actually, in the India, if we see so many NGOs and some private schools are working in this, but holistic level change only comes when we have policy level changes. So policy level changes comes when there is a will for a political party to bring some kind of a change. So now the recent national education policy which has come up, it's going in that way of multidisciplinary education, but even the environmental aspect is still missing. So I would like to know if anyone have any comments or suggestions or anything else if they want to add. So you can unmute yourself, or you can also drop your question down below in the chat box. You can ask Ranmal Jhala ji, and even my research is in the education sector itself, in higher education. You can also pose a question to me.
Akash, my question is to Mr. Jhala. How green movements or green parties can bring environmental or green syllabus to the classrooms? So is there a way out, or what needs to be done? Mr. Jhala, this question is to you. Thank you.
Okay. The problem is we don't have people who can impart environmental education at any level, our texts. So what we really need is teacher training workshops, after which you can then implement both in theory and in practice, outdoors, apart from gardening, as Akash said, taking people to the outdoors, to the forest, to the rivers, to the countryside, and so on. So, one, we have to have teacher training workshops. Two, we have to get the government to follow these policies. Is that adequate, Sureshji?
But how we can make it mandatory? That is the question.
It's already mandatory in colleges by the Supreme Court many years ago.
But has it been followed in the schools also?
We need to find out about that. I don't know about school. I only know about colleges. But the fact that this book has gone into a third reprint, I think some of it must be getting used.
But I think this book or any book on environment should be mandatory for all courses, not only for the environmental sciences course.
No. This is for all undergraduates.
But this is not happening anywhere.
Then we need to go to the Supreme Court and say why this is a breach of contempt of court. Who is implementing this and why have they not?
I think, NGOs working in the field of environment should, do something about it. Because to file a PIL, we need a lot of money. And Green Party like us, we do not have money. So even if we have a will to go to the Supreme Court to question this, we cannot do that. Or maybe some NGO can do that, which is resourceful and which has funds for these kinds of things. But we can write about these things and persuade the government to implement. Yeah.
And we can go to the media.
Yes, we can go, but media hardly listens to the sane voices because our media is corporate-led.
If we have friends in the media, if we know journalists...
Friends are hardly able to help us, but of course, we can take help of social media. We have alternative media. We can approach them and percolate this ideology. Any further comment on this?
Yeah, like what you said about whether the environmental education is a part of school system or college system, is very much part of the school and college system right now, because after the Supreme Court decision, so many schools, like the schools which have the funds, they have implemented EVS studies, environmental studies, as a subject for primary standards and in the secondary standards as well. And also in the +2 level and the college level, even though. So, but the problem here is the environmental textbooks, what they are following is not updated. They only have the old issues like soil erosion and ozone layer depletion and all these issues, but not the currently happening issues which are of concern, are climate change, emergency, and sustainable living. These all are not part of the environmental textbooks which are right now followed in the school. So the one thing the education bodies which are controlling these syllabi and textbooks should be updating the syllabus about what is rightly present, what is happening at the outside world, like climate change issues and sustainable development goals and all. The sustainable development goals are very much new. It's come into the picture in 2015. But even though after 5 years has lapsed, but even though these sustainable development goals are not included in the school curriculum. So here the problem is not about whether the environmental education is the part of the school education or not. It's very much part, but those are not effective. It's not effective in the sense like they don't have the topics which are relevant to the current generation. So I think the government should look into developing the content which is specific to the current generation problems, and also the futuristic vision of the renewable energy and all this. So the problem lies in the curriculum and the pedagogy which they follow. And the pedagogy in the sense, even though if we have these all kind of things, the new generation topics like climate change and sustainable living, the teachers who teach this, they should be very much equipped with the pedagogical skills to make the students understand about the current gravity of the problem. Because when people go and experience it in the outside world, they know about these kind of things. The approach should be so much of like experiential learning, not like a rote-based memorization. So that's what I think.
Very true, Akash. Professor Raj K. Singh, you must be having an opinion on this.
Thank you. Thank you. Great to be here today. And I think all of you have made very valid points. I have personal experience in this. You see, when my daughter was in school, she was very interested in environmental education and wanted to opt for it in higher studies, but was discouraged by the teacher, and primarily because most of the schools view their children's options through the lens of available careers. And environmental education, fortunately or unfortunately, does not seem to impress on the minds of teachers and schools and parents that this is something that the child can pursue and move forward with profitably. Now, profitable is an important word to focus here. Most schools and colleges, for that matter, are focused on very traditional career options. These career options, they do not realize, may not exist after a few years. The rapid changes which are taking place around us in the environment, in society and in technology are going to overtake all these attitudes and perceptions. But there seems to be a feeling of denial that we are very happy living within, and that when it comes, we shall cross the bridges when we get to them, which I think is a very narrow perspective. But as Mr. Nautiyal says, that the effort conceptually is very powerful, very relevant, but at the same time, who is going to bell the cat? To bell the cat, it is important that I have a cascading effect throughout the country. To be able to do that, I need resources. The resources, like it or not, unfortunately, can only come from the government. No private enterprise, no corporate, no political party may have the inclination, but do not certainly have the will to spend on environmental awareness generation, despite the fact that we hear in the news that the 50-degree C temperatures occurrence has increased rapidly over a period of last 50 years. Every summer, most countries are experiencing temperatures of 50 C. Very unpleasant, very uncomfortable. But is it going to make the policy decision makers sit up and allocate resources and put the money where the mouth is? It hasn't happened yet, but somebody needs to knock them on the head. All the political parties, the NGOs, I think, are doing a useless job. I am not very impressed by their efforts. I have nothing personal against them, but most of the time, they are going around with begging bowls, trying to keep themselves afloat. And the big ones have a different agenda altogether. They seem to be working and politicking according to that agenda. I would not put my buck on the development sector as far as addressing the issue of environmental change and education is concerned. I think somebody in the government, somebody in the judiciary needs to get the bull by the horns and say, all right, this is going to happen. Why are we following certain agendas far more aggressively than environment? Why hasn't in the last 70 years any party addressed this issue? I am sure we want a green environment, but we don't think twice before felling trees anywhere in the country. And the recent episode of wanting to fell about over 2 lakh or maybe more trees just to be able to mine diamonds. What nonsense. I think the citizens of this country need to be galvanized. They need to get organized. And as a country, I have great faith in the people. The people are far better than the government or any government that has been here or will be here. Having said that, I think a mobilization, a movement from outside involving teachers, academicians, researchers, parents, students, technologists, people in higher education, they need to get down and join hands and have a concerted effort. That's what I feel. Thank you for giving me time.
Thank you, Professor Singh, for your enlightening words. And the question is, who shall build the cat? So, Ispriya, being a climate activist, would you like to reflect on what Professor Singh has said and what our key speaker, Mr. Jhala, has said? Thank you.
Thank you, Suresh. So I would like to add to this. People are not able to understand the gravity of the situation. And as Akash said, environmental studies you will find in textbooks, but those are not updated. And that is only for the sake of having environment-related things in the text. It is only because it's a Supreme Court order. It's not to show the real situation. When people will actually start caring about climate change is when they will get to know that by 2030, 34 million jobs could be lost in India. So 34 million is not a small number. When people will start caring, when they know there will be more unemployment, when they know that climate change is not only an environment issue, it is also a health security issue. It is a food security issue and it's a human rights issue. When people will have to migrate, they'll have to leave everything behind and leave their houses. And yes, so it is not just an environment issue. And this is what needs to be there in the textbooks.
Thank you, Ispriya. Manjil, would you like to reflect how we can bring environment syllabi to the schools?
I think we should involve the NGOs and social media especially for the subject, because किसी भी चीज को spread करने के लिए जब तक हर चीज public तक नहीं पहुंचेगी ना, तब तक अपन अंदर कुछ एक small groups में discussion करने से इम्प्लीमेंटेशन तो नहीं हो पाएगा. और मैंडेटरी का जो उन्होंने बताया अभी, वो मैंडेटरी का भी जो प्रोसेस है, इट इज मस्ट, I think. Thank
you, Manjil. Rita, would you like to reflect on what has been said by so many speakers here?
Thank you very much for I'm pleased to be to be here and to have been able to hear this. What I suppose I had in my mind was that the India Green Party is a registered political party, correct?
Right.
So it seems to me as though I'm not clear. I should confess that I'm watching this from London, so I'm not actually in India at the moment. So apologies for that in a way. But I do wonder whether it would, I'm not clear as to whether or not people around the table here are themselves seeking elected representation, because it seems to me as though, and it may be a question of lack of money, but it seems to me as though that is one way, given that you are a political party, then maybe in some states it's possible to seek elected representation, because that in a democracy is a good way of actually being able to implement the changes that you wish to see, is to seek elected representation yourself. I'm sorry if this sounds like a very naive point, but, given that this is a registered political party, should it not be the case that
we fully agree with you, Rita. We fully agree with you. And in fact, we are already in the process to field some of the candidates in the state assembly elections and also contest the 2024 general election, which is for the national parliament.
Okay.
Yes.
But I suppose you need a lot of money for that, right? Because in order to be successful.
Actually, being a green party, we do not need a lot of money because we will do our campaigning in a way that is sustainable, that is economical, that doesn't harm in the environment and economy so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. I'm sorry, I didn't address the direct question around how to bring it to schools, but this, you asked for my reflections on what I'd heard, so this was what I was thinking. So.
Thank you, Rita. Michael, in a way, you are also a teacher, besides being one of the leading light of the party. So would you like to reflect on the topic?
Definitely. I thank you so much, Sureshji, for asking me. I'd like to point out that, like Jhala ji had mentioned, that we are having a shortage of teachers. And since India Greens Party being a green political party, and we have a very, very long way to go, our party wishes to be able to transform things from a grassroots level. And this is also one of the intentions behind which IGP has got its green education mission, or the idea of educating people in a green way about the green ideology, green lifestyle. Also, the reason why we have our green camps. Though we currently are working more on our internal presentation and our internal members, office bearers, because we would first want them to be understanding the green concepts well, and they themselves practice what we preach. So right now, our focus is very much on internal transformation of its office bearers, but definitely a part of our plan for the green camps is to educate people so that at least they either first be a good citizen, and if better, then they could be a green citizen, and even more better, then they could be people who would get into green activism and green politics, and also become green leaders to represent such issues and take them on the national platform and bring it to everyone's awareness and help in getting all our policies into implementations level. Definitely, we will also need Jhala ji's help for that when we will bring in our specialized module for grassroots level training, which will work on these issues. So we would also like to contribute on this level, not just politics also, but also in this way. And through this mission of ours, we will also be able to identify potential members, volunteers, and leaders for the party, green leaders, who would be committed to serving the same cause which we are all gathered together for today. So that's all I would like to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael, for your reflection. Now, I would like to know what Rajendra Minj, who is one of our vice president, thinks about this. How we can take green education to the schools. Rajan ji, over to you.
तो सबसे पहले तो जहाँ तक मेरा मानना है कि विद्यालयों और विश्वविद्यालयों में पर्यावरण का ये पाठ्यक्रम है, ये अभी हमारी छत्तीसगढ़ में तो सभी स्कूलों में एक ऑप्शनल सब्जेक्ट के रूप में रखा गया है, परंतु इसको बहुत गंभीरता से नहीं लिया जाता है। मेरे ख्याल से इसे सिर्फ एक फौरी तौर पर गंभीरता इसमें नहीं है, तो इसको अगर मुख्य सब्जेक्ट के रूप में इसको समावेश किया जाए अन्य प्रांतों में भी, तो हमारे जो आने वाले जेनरेशन है या तो हमारे जो नागरिक हैं वो उससे पूर्ण तरह से सुसज्जित होंगे, और हमारा जो लक्ष्य है पूरी दुनिया को बदलने का, तो उसमें उनकी अहम भूमिका हो सकती है। माननीय सुप्रीम कोर्ट के आदेश का पालन तो होना चाहिए, अन्यथा मानहानि का मामला बनता है और इसको किस एजेंसी के द्वारा इसका परिपालन होना चाहिए। तो मानव संसाधन विकास मंत्रालय के ऊपर हम लोग भी उसको चिट्ठी तो लिख ही सकते हैं या ईमेल दायर कर सकते हैं कि नहीं, तो हमारे अध्यक्ष महोदय ही बता पाएंगे, लेकिन हम उनको चिट्ठी लिख सकते हैं कि भाई माननीय सुप्रीम कोर्ट का आदेश है, इसको आप थोड़ा गंभीरता से लीजिए, है ना। और जहाँ तक हमारी पार्टी का संबंध है, हम लोग इसमें जितने भी आजकल जो ज्वलंत मुद्दे हैं पर्यावरण के संबंध में, उनको हम समक्ष रख सकते हैं।
Akash, you can continue if you wanted to say.
Yeah, I wanted to ask a question to Ranmal Jhala ji. like if the political framework or policy framework adopted by government is actually reflects in the education system or the policies in any sector. So what was the policy framework which adopted before 1990? Because the 1990 is a major milestone in the history of Indian economy. The liberalization has happened. So what was the education scenario before the liberalization and what was now? What is now happening right now? So whether the neoliberal policies have totally impacted the education policy, which we now adapted as an NEP. So what was then and what was now? What is now? So what is the difference? So I wanted to know.
Exactly what you're asking. Okay, after 91, you see, environment became an issue long ago in the 70s when Indira Gandhi, late 70s, the early 80s, set up a ministry. There was no ministry for environment. Now it has cabinet rank, I think. Even in Gujarat, we have a new minister who's got cabinet rank for environment. But on paper, all these things exist. But why don't they put their money where their mouth is? And we have to push the government saying, these are your policies, this is what you say on paper, and this is what you are doing. Why this lacuna? One of the things that really bothers me is building of highways and cutting of trees. Where there are trees along highways, you can incorporate them in your new design. But the amount of trees that are getting cut for mining and for highways and for factories is unforgivable.
So this means environment is being taken for granted. This is not to be done. So Professor Singh, would you like to add to what Jhala ji has said?
बिल्कुल सुरेश जी, और जो राजेंद्र जी ने टिप्पणी की थी, मैं उस पर थोड़ा सा की सराहना करना चाहूंगा कि इस बात को एक आंदोलन का रूप देने के लिए ये बहुत आवश्यक है कि इसमें सबका सहयोग हो, और सबका सहयोग केवल नीति बनाने से नहीं होगा। नीति तो ये भी है कि आप कहीं पब्लिक प्लेस पर धूम्रपान न करें, लेकिन क्या वो मानी जाती है? आज की तारीख में आप यूपी रोडवेज की किसी भी बस में आप चढ़ जाइए, वहां पर कंडक्टर ड्राइवर खुद बीड़ी सिगरेट पीते हुए आपको दिखाई देंगे और उनके ठीक ऊपर लिखा रहता है धूम्रपान निषेध है। तो केवल नीति बनाने से और कानून बनाने से अगर काम हो जाता, और जैसा झाला जी ने कहा अभी कि यहाँ पर हमारे पास ऐसा नहीं है कि हमें समझ नहीं है, समझ भी है, बूझ भी है, और हमारा इरादा भी है। इरादे में कमजोरी है, उस कमजोरी को हटाना बहुत आवश्यक है, और उस कमजोरी को हटाने के लिए एक जन आंदोलन तभी शुरू हो सकता है अगर हम एक जागरूकता जगा पाए लोगों में, माता पिता में, जो सड़क पर एक आम आदमी है उसके हृदय में हम एक ये धारणा डालें कि वातावरण जो है ये अब आपकी प्रेफरेंस नहीं है कि मैं इस पर कुछ करूं या ना करूं। ये संकट आपके द्वार पर आ गया है, बाढ़ आ रही है, हरिकेन्स आ रहे हैं, तापमान बढ़ गया है। पहले जो है 50 डिग्री 48 डिग्री जो है 3-4 गर्मियों के बाद कहीं आता था, अब हर गर्मी में जो है आपका औसतन जो तापमान है दिन का वो आपका बढ़ के 50 डिग्री के आसपास आ रहा है। इसका मूल्यांकन अभी हाल में ही मीडिया में आया था कि पिछले 100 साल के फिगर्स अगर आप देख लें तो आप ये देखेंगे कि निरंतर हर 10 साल के अंदर जो है ये 50 डिग्री एक आध बार हुआ करता था 10 साल में, अब जो है हर साल हो रहा है। तो ये समस्या कोई ऐसी नहीं है कि आप इसको ये सोच लें कि भाई कल देख लेंगे, वो कल अब आ गया है और वो आपके द्वार पर खड़ा है, और आप अगर आज उस पर टिप्पणी नहीं करेंगे तो प्रलय आने में देर नहीं है। धन्यवाद।
थैंक यू। बहुत अच्छी बात कही है, वेरी ट्रू। बिफोर वी कम टू द कंक्लूजन, Jhala साहब, would you like to add any point?
Yes, basically this education should, as Rita pointed out, finally we are a political party. My campaign intends to travel offline, conducting workshop. In a year or so, I will have camps in my land where we are setting up the Green Party head office for Gujarat and West Zone. We have to be proactive. Webinars are not going to solve the problem. So, finally, how many of us are willing to stand for election?
That is a mute question. By the way, webinars and this kind of awareness programs have their own role, and they also contribute in propagating the green ideology.
We have to go beyond them.
Yes, sir. Beyond is contesting elections and being party, we have to do that sooner than later. So, Akars, I think it is your time now to summarize the whole conversation and then wrap it up. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for your valuable thoughts, and Ranmal Jhala for his time and for explaining about his work and his workshops and all. The main point for any country to progress sustainably is the education is the key thing. So education maybe in the primary or secondary or higher education. So here the sustainable development goals are the main agenda for any country to progress in this decade, because of 2030 is the deadline for us for reaching the agreement which is set up in the Paris for below the 1.5 degrees Celsius. So in this juncture, the education sector should be adapting to the changes which are happening in the outside world, inculcating all the necessary things for the sustainable entrepreneurship, or sustainable living, all these things. So the speakers were spoken about the developmental works or included with the unemployment rate. As Ishpriya said, the unemployment rate will be increased due to the climate change calamities and all. So how do we look at this all paradoxical situation when we have the environmental problems in the other one hand, and India is facing another huge problem is social issues. The social justice and employment rate is increasing. So in one hand, we have environmental issues, and other hand, we have social justice and unemployment rate. So we have to balance these two things. So how we are going to do that? So we have as an economy, if we see, we have changed from agriculture sector to the service-based economy, but we missed this manufacturing secondary sector, which we missed in this transition. So when we are focusing on Make in India and build Stand Up India and all these policies, but the sustainability should be core of it, because when we go for the manufacturing-based economy, again there will be any pollution issues and environmental damage, and all these things come up. So we should aim for a sustainable manufacturing or building a sustainable businesses around the ideas, because we need the manufacturing sector and the jobs which are produced by manufacturing sector. We can't compromise on that, because our Indian population is of 130 crores. We have the 70 to 80 crore people are in the unorganized sector. And by 2030, many young people are entering into the job market. We should be we should be having the jobs for them. So we should be having the economic progress as well as with the environmental protection. So how do we do that? It's a paradoxical situation for any government. So as an India Greens Party, we very much believe in the sustainability and the three pillars of the sustainability are social justice, economic justice, and environmental justice. We believe in these three things. And we also believe that one form of injustice is not possible without other two. So these all are interrelated. So we have have our own policies to how to develop the country from the bottom up in the sense of community development or creating the jobs in the community level and giving the power to the local people to protect the commons over there, and also acknowledging the indigenous people, their power to protect the nature and all. So these kind of policies will be formulated for solving the problems in our country. So I respect all the opinions which have come up today. I encourage all you to join us in these conversations to formulate these kind of policies for our country. So Ranmal Jhala ji wants to say something.
Yeah, I want to say that this is the beginning of a series of the Green series, and we were dealing with the second unit of the book. The next month we will continue with unit 3 and other issues, so on, till we complete the book.
Yeah, that is great. And I think before we conclude, I expect an apt comment from Professor Singh. And then I will request our social media committee convener, Ispriya, to conclude this session. Thank you. Over to Professor Singh.
सुरेश जी, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद आपका, और कि आपने मुझे एक बार और अवसर दिया सुनने के लिए। शिक्षक होने के नाते मेरा स्वर और मेरी बातें थोड़ी लोगों को कड़वी लगती हैं, तो इसके लिए क्षमा चाहूंगा। लेकिन तथ्य तक पहुंचने के लिए आवश्यक है कि हम सब उसकी गंभीरता को और अच्छी तरह समझें और उसके तरफ अग्रसर हो जाएं। यहाँ पर बहुत सारे लोग हैं जिनकी बातें मैंने सुनी, और आप सब लोग बहुत ही ज्ञानवर्धक बातें की। All of you are brilliant in your own chosen fields. You're experts, subject matter experts. At the same time, I have no doubt, I'm an optimist. I have no doubt that if we put our heads together and we are able to come up with ideas, address the key issue, that how do we generate awareness amongst the masses, and one of the key stakeholders in this would be the educationist or the teacher. और इस पर अगर हम अपना ध्यान आकर्षित कर सकें, और आपकी पार्टी का उद्देश्य बहुत ही उत्तम है, और मुझे कोई शंका नहीं है कि आगे चल के हम इस लक्ष्य की तरफ अग्रसर होने में कोई बाधा का अनुभव करेंगे। धन्यवाद सुरेश।
Thank you. Over to you, Ispriya. Please conclude the session with your remarks.
Thank you everyone for joining. I feel it was a great session with a lot of knowledgeable people who were able to share our valuable insights with us. I hope everyone will be present for the next parts of the series by Jhala ji. And we hope to take this discussion to a more advanced level. This was only the beginning. Again, very grateful for everyone who joined this event today. And I hope to see you all in the future episodes as well. Thank you.
So nice of you, Ispriya, and thanks everybody present here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Yes, one last thing. Do visit our website, www.indiagreensparty.org. You can get a detail of all our policies that are well framed and mindful of the future that's required. Do donate if you feel like you want to contribute to the cause. Thank you.
So nice of you. Thank you.